Well, good morning, everybody. First map I want to show you today looks back at the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation. So what we're trying to capture here in this map is the influence of that southwest flow, which we've been discussing that in spring, when you can get the jet stream to come across the country in this direction, it just tends to be one that really lights up the central United States. We've had deeper troughs at times over the west in the last week that brought in some of the wetter conditions you see in California. And this just delivered a lot of rain to a lot of people. Now we do know, and this is quite important, that there were several locations that were missed. And even though when you kind of just look at the map with blurry eyes, you see a lot of precipitation, there are holes in this, and some growers really missed out on some of the moisture that was needed. But some of the bigger changes that we've seen kind of on a macro scale view of things is how the 16-inch or 40 centimeter soil moisture map continues to evolve. And once we finally have added in all of the precipitation within the last couple of days here in parts of Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska, we've now eaten away at that larger hole that's been in this area with the very dry conditions. Now we do have more severe weather expected in this region today, which means we could have some thunderstorms that come through and help kind of chip away at some of the drier places that are still left here. But remember, even though we see some temporary change in this map, it doesn't take long for this map to go back over to dry again. We need routine precipitation throughout the midsection of the country and east in order to kind of just stave off the worry of drought development. Okay, thinking about that, I want to go show you next what the storm reports look like from yesterday. So remember, we were watching a few different complexes of storms. We had the one that was over the lower Mississippi River Valley, a lot of wind damage down here, and a tornado report. We had the hailstorms that were right around the Red River getting up toward Norman, and then we had here over in parts of western Kansas, southwestern corner of Nebraska, and into Colorado. A lot of tornado reports here, several photogenic tornadoes in that area. Saw a lot of storm chasers out here. But that storm system this morning, here it is on infrared, the sun's about to rise over the top of it. And later on today, this particular storm system could improve the storm chances in one of our areas that's missed out on a lot of the rainfall. It'll be about the speed of these storms that'll be most important to watch. But I would like to just take you back to yesterday to show you what it did. This is a very tightly wound system. And remember, there are actually two other short waves involved here. There was one over the lower Mississippi River Valley, and then one here over the northern plains. So as we play this forward, right as the sun was setting last night, you can see some of these storms, just beautiful shadows here on their anvils showing us just how tall they are. And that's a part of the recipe needed to get these things to make big hail. But this is going to be the system which we watched overnight last night. There it is, just continuing to curl out of Colorado into Kansas. It's a relatively slow mover. And what we're going to see this do later today is increase our severe weather risk right in through this corridor. Okay, through the weekend, this is going to keep pushing on off to the east, but if we take a look at our all hazards weather map just before 6 a.m. this morning, we do have the flood watches that are out for where the rain was quite heavy and where there's still a little bit more this morning. And then you have down here, this is the anticipation of the very wet weather that will be coming here this weekend. When you look out west, they've downgraded this away from an excessive heat watch to just a heat advisory. I say just a heat advisory. It's still going to be very hot in the west, and it's going to be important for us to diagnose what that is going to do to snowmelt, rapid snowmelt, and the potential for flooding in the west as well. So the setup is right here, okay? This is the main wave we've been discussing. That one's going to just continue to move. Now, why it's so slow? It's cut off from the main flow. In fact, the northern branch and the southern branch of the jet stream are not pushing it really. And it's got a closed circulation, which means it is just going to slowly propagate to the east. Now, when I say closed circulation, why does that make it slower? Well, so much of the flow is being shared between both a zonal, which means west to east, and a meridional, which means north to south. And so as a result, it doesn't move quickly versus these more open waves like the one that you have down here. Now, this very large closed low, this long wave, this is a short wave, this is a long wave, it is actually going to sit still and almost retrograde a little bit. And that's going to let the ridge that you see that's open right into this area, it's going to allow it to kind of push farther to the west and really set up shop right here over the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia. So this is the setup, and the last component to it is this subtropical branch that's curling right here. And that is the piece that's going to deliver all of the heavy rain into Texas later on this weekend. So our severe weather threat today, according to the Storm Prediction Center, again, they're going to identify this area right in the triple point of that low that's coming out of Kansas this morning. We're going to watch right here later on today and then into Texas. You'll see that in a few moments. Tomorrow, this presses into Iowa, but we still have the severe storm threat in Texas from that secondary shortwave. And then finally, when we get into the day on the 14th, this would be Sunday, we're going to watch the Ohio River Valley for the potential for storms, all associated with that first system, which is going to be falling apart by this time. So let's go into the high-res NAM just to get an idea on what we think this might look like. So here we are this morning. There's the showers I mentioned here in the north, and then we're watching a complex of storms continue to move across Arkansas through the day today. So right in through here we're going to watch. But you're going to see later on today, this is noon, getting into this afternoon and this evening. Right here, right there along, this is honestly a warm frontal feature, but it's actually got its origins in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Basically there's high-level winds that are descending and punching a hole in the back side of this. It's more of an upper-level frontal feature right there that's creating this, but it's going to give us lift, a lot of vorticity advection in this area, which is spin that's going to help the atmosphere get the air rising, and that's where we're going to keep an eye on these storms. Now, outside of that, there's going to be scattered storms across a lot of other places across the United States. It's just I'm worried about these being severe. This is tonight, getting into the overnight hours, playing into early Saturday morning. By Saturday morning, the second shortwave is now delivering rain into parts of central Texas, while one is just falling apart here over parts of the upper Midwest and the western Corn Belt. And you know that on Saturday night, we're going to be watching this part of Iowa for the risk of strong to severe storms. And again, our low just continuing to curl its way up here into parts of Texas and Oklahoma. And just more moisture keeps streaming into this second event here. Now, thinking about where this is going to go after this, I'm going to show you a couple of things. First of all, the models have recovered after having some very poor initialization, it seemed, like especially with the GFS. Both models have kind of returned back up to their normal performance levels here. So we're going to look at both of them here in a few moments. But what they're agreeing on better now is the evolution of this pattern. So as we talked about, there's the trough off the west coast. Here's the ridge that's building and the two short waves, one that's here and the more open wave to its south. Now watch them all four things together, because by the time we get into this weekend, we've now developed a retrograding trough in the west, a large ridge setting up over the Canadian prairie and western Canada, like British Columbia and Alberta. There's actually two separate little waves to the south, and this pattern gives us drier air that comes racing in here. That's kind of been the drawing I've given you all week long. The models have really kind of latched onto this, and it's going to last through the weekend and then into next week. So this pattern that we see right here, and I'm just going to make this statement again. In spring, okay, troughs here, ridges building in the west, flow out of the northwest. This will deliver the heat. It would do that in summer too. But the flow that you see coming across the Midwest here, if it was midsummer, we would see better thunderstorm activity out of this. But as it stands, this is going to be bringing in some drier air on the backside of this trough. Now, that's out a week from now. If we just keep playing this forward, what I'm waiting for is any clue that the model might switch back over to some southwest flow. And we can't really look at some of our big teleconnections for this. The MJO is collapsing. I'm not really identifying a lot of high latitude blocking. So I'm just going to watch the model evolution and see its trends. But it would appear that the end of May may return some of that southwest flow again, which means we could open this area up to better chances for storms once again. It's been very clear to me that the pattern is like this week on, week off. And I think the next week on for precip, especially in this section of the United States, is going to be not next week, but the week following. All right. So let's compare the models. This is the European model, 12Z run today, or 0Z run today, excuse me. And this is the same model run, but showing you anomalies. So we're looking here at total forecast, and this is anomalous. Now the drier air that's in here, remember, we do expect storms in this area. So this may be where the model and its resolution and its inability to capture convection very well is missing some of the storms here. All right, that's the next 7 days. Let's now look at the GFS. That's the GFS next 7 days. And let's do this. Let's compare it to the European model. You now see they've got pretty good agreement. I'm impressed that they're that close. But here's the GFS 7-day anomaly forecast. So similar setup. So if we compare the anomalies, they're pretty similar, excuse me. So let's look at both. First, I want to just show you what that big ridge in the west is going to do. Because through this weekend, a tremendous amount of moisture getting pushed into this section of the country in the atmosphere. Some of it will get rained out. By Monday, though, we've already suppressed it with the trough digging in as the ridge builds here over the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada. So what we end up getting is a couple of pushes of drier air here, squashing the moisture farther to the south. So what we're going to watch for is out into week 2, this corridor staying wetter, and this area is having more risk of drier conditions. So the models now, here they go. We're going to let them start off with this morning. There's 7 a.m. And let's play through Friday into Saturday now and Sunday. Now, as we work our way from Sunday into Monday, a couple of things you're going to notice. A lot more drier air in through here as we watch the remnants of the system today that's going through Nebraska, tomorrow Iowa, then into the Ohio River Valley. By Monday, it brings its precipitation in both models. You can see here over to the Carolinas and into Virginia. They need more rain too. So as we play this forward, now what you watch is going into next week. Where's most of the convection? It's kind of right in through this area, fed in the south by the Gulf, and then storms are going to pop in the mountains underneath that larger ridge. Playing out past next Wednesday, there is now better agreement on this system that's going to try to sneak over this ridge and develop. It almost looks like a clipper coming right through here, and it will drag a front, as you can see in both models, through the upper Midwest. That would be about a week from now, next Thursday night. Playing through next Friday, both models really have the pace of this set, and they also both deliver a high-pressure cell after it. So to see good agreement out almost 10 days is impressive in the models. So let's take a look next at kind of these summary maps. Probability of getting an inch of total precipitation in the next 10 days. Again, we continue to identify this region that appears to have a hole in it, but we're going to be watching for the storms to come through here later on today. Here's the probability of 2 inches, just to watch again how wet it's going to be in Texas, and 4 inches. So we're keeping a very close eye down here. Next, that week 2 pattern. Remember, as the ridge develops, northwest flow is drier, and we see that in all 3 models. Where it's wetter is in the southwest, across the Gulf Coast states. That is also in all 3 models, although the GFS is drier in the Gulf Coast. So we see a lot of similarities in our longer range models. Let's flip this over to a temperature discussion as we finish up. Just want to remind you that most of the country is out of frost danger. We expect frost, of course, at high elevation. That's all that you're seeing here. And next Thursday morning, the models are trying to deliver a shot at colder air that comes into the interior of New York, hitting mainly higher elevation areas here. But we'll watch for that carefully. If we take a look at what the high temperatures are expected to do, here's today's highs, playing into tomorrow. And then as we go into the weekend, a lot of very hot conditions here along the West Coast. This, again, as we talked about last night, has me very concerned about the melt, how quickly it can happen for the Sierra Nevada, which still has a tremendous amount of snow in it. Watch last night's in-depth video for more on that. And as we play from Sunday into Monday, get out there into Tuesday and Wednesday, and next Thursday. Remember that Thursday morning will be quite chilly here in parts of the Northeast. But overall, we've broken this off into a more mild pattern. So over the next 7 days, this is what we're picking up in terms of GDDs. So as we really work hard to finish planting in the midsection of the country, you're going to get quite a bit of heat into this crop. But as we talked about, look at how these numbers have really risen here over the west with the heat that's coming in with that associated ridge. Finally, let's take a look at our 5-day sliding window of average temperature anomalies. We'll park this out there day 5 through 10. So you do see the cooler conditions here. But remember, this is relative. In fact, this is quite close to seasonal. It's only a couple of degrees off, while very hot here in parts of the western United States. And then playing out farther, that's where the pattern wants to stay until we get almost to the end of the month of May, when we expect the thing to flip back over to more southwest flow. At least that's a possibility. Last thing I'm going to cover again, we kept an eye on this all week. I want to show you the latest update from the European model on total precipitation in South America. Now, as I play through just this is almost the next week or so, you notice that most of Brazil and a lot of Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay are dry. Now, understand that the model is not resolving some of the daily showers that do happen in this area, but under this, we expect the temperatures to be quite warm. The models are trying to bring rain right there through a frontal boundary that's going to go over the Paraná River, which is right here into Paraguay and parts of southern Brazil out of Argentina. But that is next weekend that could possibly be coming through that area. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Otherwise, we've seen dry conditions in Brazil. And my narrative here is not going to be an issue on the crop that was planted on time, but anything planted late could start to see just some of the yield pullback because we're just not getting enough moisture during grain fill here. And some of the crop is still very young down in southern Brazil, so it needs more time. And if this moisture does get into Mato Grosso do Sul, that would be critical. Same thing for Paraná and down here into other southern Brazilian states. So have a great weekend. I look forward to talking again next Monday. Thanks.